Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
And welcome back.
You know, guys, this says it all, does it not? God is love.
God is love. God is unconditional love. That's what I feel. God is expansion. God is so many different things, but this really encompasses.
Yes, and when we say this, we're talking about God, source, prime creator, the ultimate creative force of the universe, that which holds the universe together and brings it into manifestation. So we're not referencing Enlil, we're not referencing Enki, any one individual being of any sort. This is the unifying force of all creation and even beyond creation.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and we have come to know and to believe the love that God has for us. God is love, and whoever abides in love abides in God, and God abides in him. 1 John 4:16. So, many people prefer the Gospel of John because it is the most heartfelt, and it's actually the most Gnostic-like or Essene-like of the Gospels. And there are many others. There was over 200 different Gospels out there in circulation, and we do have copies of many of the other Gnostic works now, too, that expound on this fact that, God is love. God is in us. Every single one of us has God inside us.
That divine spark of creation.
And one of the best sermons I ever heard was from Pastor Rusty. This was at a Lutheran church in South Carolina before he left for Texas. And really loved him. And because he was a open-minded man, that he would have no problem going to a Hindu service, a Buddhist service, a Jewish service. He understood this, that God ultimately is love, and that which cultivates the love and compassion for others in the hearts is ultimately what we want to be spreading. And it's not about dogma. Dogma divides, love unites. And this is one of Cindy and I's biggest missions given to us by the guides, by the Pleiadians, by the Galactic Federation, is that we have to get past the division. That's the bottom line. We have to get past the division because God doesn't adhere to any dogma.
Right. And without manipulative interference, I feel everybody would be accepting of everybody's belief system. As long as it doesn't hurt other people and it's based in love, how could anyone reject any given system?
And the opposite of love, Pastor Rusty gave his best sermon, is fear. And so right there are so many contradictory things in the standard interpretation of the Bible that we've been given, because there's also quotes that say, the fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. But how could that be when the opposite of love is fear? That makes absolutely no sense, but that's why it's there.
Mm-hmm. Well, some people say, it's like a fear. How do they say it? They say it's a fear like you would fear your father, fear of disappointing him. That's what some people say that means.
Okay, so before we get going on this, if you just close your eyes, right? Close your eyes and envision something that you love intensely. It can be your husband, your wife, your mom, your dad, your kids, your dog, your cats, anything. Something that you love intensely. Now feel the energy around you. Do you feel a sense of expansion or contraction? Now, think of something that causes fear. Maybe it's spiders. Maybe it's snakes. Maybe it's, some dark entity. Do you feel yourself contracting? Well, love is expansive. So that expansive energy will unite us. It'll get us reaching out to others, lifting each other up. That cold energy of fear is contractive. And it'll get us pulling within, turtling, basically, guarding ourselves, holding our energy in. If this world's to heal, we need to be based in love and not in fear. And this is exactly how things have been twisted. So Bhakti is a form of yoga. There's 4 classical main types of yoga, of which Bhakti is one. And it is said that Bhakti is the most effective in the Kali Yuga over the other forms of yoga. And if you use your emotions and try to reach the ultimate or God with the big G, prime creator source, we call this Bhakti Yoga. That means the path of devotion. And that devotion, it can be towards any particular form of divinity, of love that you embrace. So if it's Jesus, that's beautiful. And if you call Jesus Yeshua, that's beautiful too. We've been brought up in certain traditions, and we have these connections in our minds of certain words, certain phrases, certain faces even. And you could look at a picture of Jesus, and if you were brought up in Christianity, you'll feel that expansion in most cases. If you have that loving feeling for him, you'll feel that expansiveness. And then, of course, if we see a picture of Satan or the devil with the pitchfork, that might cause us to contract.
And, look at kind of what they've done with all of the dogma. They've traumatized a lot of people and put a lot of people in fear so that they do contract and they hold themselves in, and they're not able to expand out to love.
So Bhakti is all about using emotions. Now, the emotions, again, change our frequency. And, going back to Tesla and Einstein and all these brilliant people like Max Planck that have talked about quantum physics, the fact that, everything is energy, everything is potential. We are co-creating our energy, and we're also living in a reality in which everybody is contributing to the greater whole. And so if we use our emotions and we start to get ourselves into a place, a point where we are in a positive, loving vibe most of the time, then we really can change this world. That's what it's all about. As Christ said, the kingdom of heaven is within you. He said, don't look up here. And when they say, I'm going to be coming and I'm over there, don't look over there. It's not there. It's inside you the whole time. It's that mustard seed that needs to be cultivated.
Mm-hmm. And it's also like a childlike innocence and a childlike love to embrace something that, going back to when you were little and you had the ability to look at a insect or a flower in complete awe and just acceptance. And that's kind of what I shoot for.
So Bhakti is about living a heart-centered life, and it's about taking the emotions and using the positive emotions to connect yourself to Source, God, Prime Creator, through devotion. And, what does that devotion look like? Well, it's just the basic things, treating others with a sense of love and compassion, and giving thanks. That feeling of thankfulness is so important. And we know with the understanding today of how the universe works, there are so many things that we can use, positive affirmations. We could program our mind, which ends up programming our DNA. But you have to look at things from the light. Like if you're putting a prayer out there, or you're asking for something, you want to put it out there as if you've already received it. That's how this universe works. You have to have that expectancy. You have to have that knowing. And, as it was said, the birds don't worry about their next meal. The birds don't worry at all. They are simply in the moment, enjoying and loving in gratitude.
Yeah, so that's something that we need to work on in this world, how things have been set up and done. It's not the easiest thing, but can be done with dedication.
So I've shared with you the power of cortans, which have made me feel a sense of unity like I've never felt before. And you're looking at a picture of Hanuman. Hanuman is thought to be an incarnation of Shiva. And inside his heart is Rama and Sita, who he is devoted to, and who in the Ramayana, he serves with all his heart because he loves them so much. And so Rama is an incarnation of Vishnu, Narayana, and Sita is an incarnation of Lakshmi. And you could also view them as the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And interestingly enough, there's that relationship between the preserving force of Vishnu and Shiva, who is, consciousness before any sort of manifestation that manifests through the divine feminine in which then he is able to take a more tangible existence as Narayana or Vishnu, and then the incarnations that come after, like Rama and Krishna. But you see, he holds them in his heart, so that's where his being is centered. He's living a heart-centered life, and it's that service to others, knowing that, okay, if I do it this way, it's going to benefit me more, but it's not going to benefit my neighbor, it's not going to benefit my friends, but maybe it's going to benefit me. Now, that's not really necessarily heart-centered. So when we're looking to try to better the whole constantly, even when it means we won't necessarily manifest our more base desires, that is in service to others, and that's devotion. Because ultimately, Source wants to bring everyone to a point of love, but it's up to each one of us to discover that way on our own and do it in our own unique style, our own unique path.
Yes, use that ability, that expansiveness to figure out how are you going to do that. And sometimes the best way to get out of your own head is to reach out and help somebody else.
So I've talked about Deva Premal and Mitten, her husband. They are musicians, and they're also practitioners of kirtan. And I would encourage people to check out their music. And there's so many others. Ajit Kaur has a beautiful voice, and you could feel her heart-centered music as well. And then we have Krishna Das, who it's his passion that comes through, as his voice is maybe not as pretty as the lady's voice, but at the same time, he is someone that's so highly revered for his passion and dedication to Bhakti and to spreading the love. And it's amazing, like when you go into one of these kirtans, and I've been in kirtans like I've shared with you, that we will do traditional Hindu mantras, but many of the people there were also Jewish, so we'd have some Hebrew prayers and things mixed in, and then we'd also have Christian songs and things mixed in as well, and also Native American. And the energy was beautiful because it's not about what tradition or system, it's about the love that's in the heart.
Mm-hmm. It's that human connection about being around people that you can love and trust, and people that have like a commonality about them.
And when we look at like the Sufi mystics, that's an Islamic form of mysticism. They will do ecstatic dances. And often in kirtans too, you'll see people just get up and start to dance spontaneously because the life force is just flowing through them. And they're in a state of bliss and devotion and love. Again, it's using the emotions to change our own vibration from that of a typical vibration, unfortunately in this world, which is often very, very lower centered. It's still in that survival mode in so many people, instead of that mode of just true love and compassion and gratitude, which really lifts us up, and that's really what can transform the world.
And I look at this kind of dancing, and I think of children who naturally love to spin, and they laugh and they giggle and they enjoy it. So to me, this is a very base form of reaching that innocent childlike love and ecstasy.
So Bhakti Yoga is one of the 4 classical schools of yoga, alongside Jnana, which is knowledge or self-study, Karma, which is action, and Raja, which is meditation, also known as Royal Yoga. Each offer a path to moksha, which is spiritual liberation and self-realization. And when we say self-realization, again, that's the same as what the Gnostics were talking about with gnosis. It's when you feel it and you know that Source is within you. You know that the ultimate goal here is love and unity and compassion. So derived from the Sanskrit root, bhaj, meaning to serve God, Bhakti Yoga is a practice of selfless devotion and recognition of the divine in everything. And the divine is in everything. And when we start to really look at that, when we say namaste, we're recognizing the divine in the person that we're addressing. So it's like the divine in me recognizes the divine in you. Bhakti yoga is one of the most common paths of spiritual development, particularly in India, where the practice originated. The concept was first described in the Bhagavad Gita and in the Upanishads, ancient Hindu texts which focus on liberation from suffering. And again, that was the goal of Buddha as well. Bhakti involves surrendering to the divine, or uniting with the universal consciousness through practices such as chanting, singing, dancing, and selfless service within the community. It's a beautiful thing, and in the cortans, often after or before, we would have potluck vegetarian meals that would be shared. It really brought a sense of community. And as I've been doing some studies on the Essenes again. I've done that in the past. And, the Essenes, that's what they were like, too. They were very much in the world, but not of the world. And they stayed apart from the world because they didn't want to be contaminated by the world system, even 2,000 plus years ago, as they were awaiting their teacher of light, the righteous teacher of light that was to come, that was Yeshua.
And they kept themselves pure, they kept themselves safe, and they grew their love for and with each other. And I think those kind of little communities and cliques, those are really, really beautiful, however they're grown organically, or any type of community where you feel safe and you feel at home and you feel people hear you, that's going to help grow that love.
And so what does it mean to surrender to the divine? Well, it doesn't mean, giving yourself up, unless we're just talking about the ego side of things. What it means is, doing for the greater good, really. It's serving the greater good of humanity, and in doing that, and all around us, all the creatures of the mother that are around us as well. And in doing that, we serve ourselves, because then we put into effect also that karma yoga, and we're starting to put out more positive karma than negative karma. And so it starts to lift everyone up. So it's that love and devotion. That is what we need to cultivate. And, there are many that believe that the one that was known as Yeshua, Jesus, what happened to him in those missing years? Well, over in India and also even in Persia, there are legends of Saint Issa. Issa, by the way, is also in Islam what he is called. And there's also legends that he walked in the Americas as well.
Right. I'm remembering a little bit when I did channel that he traveled everywhere. He was like world traveler. And I was thinking, okay, how could that be if they didn't have, like flying machines then?
Yes. Awaiting the great white Pahana.
Right. Yep.
The great white brother. Yeah, well, he was definitely like Buddha, and some people right there will have a hard time with that statement, because they want to put him in a category by himself, which everyone is unique. Every one of these amazing teachers from the higher realms that come down, they are unique, but they're all working together. The beings of light work together, and unfortunately, we'll have people that are so they're so brainwashed into thinking that there can only be one way. That way that is the truth and the life is the way of love and devotion. That's the way that leads to changing the world. It's no dogma. It's not doing things a certain way. It's not eating a wafer or drinking wine. And it's not, a certain type of baptism. It's not a certain belief set other than the belief set of love, compassion, again, oneness, working towards that heart-centered unity consciousness that exists up in the fifth density and up in the higher realms.
And then it's even looking at what really works for you, not just taking one aspect of something and deciding, okay, well, I have to follow the rules in this belief system. Not necessarily. You can look at several belief systems and follow what works for you, what works your heart, what makes you feel expansive. Take different beliefs from different systems, put them together, make your own. That's what this is about.
Yeah, again, at the top levels, these beings aren't working against each other. And if you listen to the music of people like Deva and Mitten, Ajit Kaur, Krishna Das, Snatam Kaur, there's so many other ones. If you listen to their music, feel the vibrations coming off of them, there's no way you could say that they're chanting and praying to demons. That is the most extreme form of ignorance that you can think of. And it really is a slap in the face to these wonderful beings, because they certainly don't look at it that way.
No, they don't. They're very much working together, finding how they can, fit themselves in, figuring out how can they serve you, how can they help you, and working around dogmas and stuff. It's just not there for them.
No, and so again, everything is consciousness. Everything is really all about energy, frequency, and vibration. The quickest way to change your energy is through a practice like Bhakti Yoga, and that could look unique to you. That's perfectly fine. One size does not fit all.
No, it doesn't. And, everybody has their own heart, their own vibration, their own frequency, and find what it makes you expand.
So thanks for being part of the family. Make sure you guys are subscribed. Thanks for your support on Ko-Fi and Patreon. Anybody that needs to set up an appointment, reach us at EEARTS at Proton Mail and evolutionaryenergyarts at gmail.com. May you guys be full of abundance of love and blessings of peace and contentment and gratitude. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.